Welcome back. Now, on The Explainer tonight, we're talking about the next steps of the BBI process. The county assemblies have done their job. Parliament, like we say, is all a formality, particularly with this process. Now, ideally, what would be happening now is the IEBC, that's the Electoral Management Body, would be beginning its preparations for a referendum, except for one hurdle, and that is the courts in the country. And that is because there have been several cases filed against this constitutional amendment process. And I want to take you through them now because this is the one hurdle that stands between a referendum and the people. So here we go. Let us begin first by taking you through the petitioners. Now, these are the numbers of the petitions that have been put out there, okay? So the first petition, that's E282 of 2020, is the one by David Ndi, Jerotich Sei, James Gondi, Wanjiro Gikonyo, Aikal Angele. Their case is against the Attorney General. The next petition is by Third Way Alliance, and the respondents in their case is the IEBC, the BBI Secretariat, the 47 county assemblies and Parliament. And the next petition that has been lodged at the High Court is by the Kenya National Union of Nurses, and they name the Attorney General as the respondent in their case. And then we have another one here. This petition, E401 of 2020, is by an online lobby group known as 254 Hope, and the respondent there is the Attorney General. Now, those are the first four. There's, of course, another three petitions here. This next one is by Justice Juma Isaac Ogola against the Attorney General. And then we have another one by Amorara Omoke. And the respondents listed here are Raila Odinga, the Attorney General, the IEBC, and the BBI Secretariat. The last petition of the seven is by Isaac Aluchier, and he names the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, the Attorney General, and the IEBC as respondents in that case. Now, there's about 6 amicus curiae. We'll not get into that for the moment because there's just quite a number of them. Now, I want to get into all of these petitions that were then consolidated into one. Why? Because the court said, and I quote, they found that these petitioners raised substantial questions of law to warrant a 3-judge bench to hear and determine the case. So on the 21st of January, all of these cases were consolidated into one, with the lead file being that was done by David Ndi and others. Now, of course, they went on to form a 5-judge bench that then summarized all of those petitions into this. They condensed it and said, this is the summary of all of those petitions, saying that the petitions challenge the content of the Constitution Amendment Bill 2020 and the process by which that bill was formulated, including the steps that have already been taken and those that they intend to take to amend the process. Basically, the summary of their petitions is that the contents of the bill and the process of formulating it violate the Constitution. Now, of course, they summarized all of those and raised the issues and condensed them. There's quite a number of them. I'll go into some of them that would be familiar with many of us. So, those petitions raise some of these issues, okay? Public participation, whether this process has been conducted in line with the principles of that. Also, there's question about whether the county assemblies and Parliament can alter the contents of that bill, incorporating the views of you, the people, through public participation. Also, they're challenging the constitution of the IEBC, its legality, and whether it is able to carry out a referendum. Remember, 4 commissioners resigned after the 2017 election. They are yet to be replaced. And then there's also the question of the legality of Parliament. If you recall, the now retired Chief Justice David Maraga declared Parliament unconstitutional due to its failure to pass the gender parity law. And now they're questioning whether Parliament, as constituted, considering that pronouncement by the CJ, whether it is able to consider this bill that has been approved by the county assemblies. Remember, they're already preparing to do that. Another question is on the legality of the BBI task force. The petitioners in this case asking whether the steering committee is a lawful entity under the laws of Kenya and whether it therefore has locus standi to promote changes to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Here's a number of other issues that have been raised by those 7 petitioners, and that is to do with the use of state resources. You've heard this debate, asking whether the national national executive can use public resources, deploying public and state officers to basically promote processes such as the collection of signatures and even popularizing the bill, considering that this is supposed to be a process that is led by the people, as in a popular initiative, according to Article 257. And then the question of a multiple choice referendum, whether all of the specific proposed amendments be submitted as separate and distinct referendum questions. And again, this one of whether the MCAs can actually alter the contents of the law. But here's another one. The referendum law, they're questioning whether at the time of the start of this process, there's legislation governing the collection of signatures, their verification, and indeed the conduction of a referendum in the country. Remember, Parliament is now actually debating this law. So those are just a summary of the issues. Others, for example, include the proposal in that amendment bill to create 70 new constituencies. Some of the petitioners here are asking whether this is a process of usurping or undermining the role of the IEBC, which is an independent body. Remember, the B in IEBC, which is an independent electoral and boundaries commission. They have a role in delimitation of boundaries. So asking whether that is something that the IEBC should be doing and not through this process. So those are some of the issues here. Now, at this point, I'd like to pause and just talk about what we heard in the news about Third Way Alliance possibly withdrawing their petition. Two things. One, it would have no effect because there's 6 other petitioners, and it is important to note that they have not formally withdrawn the case in court. And even if they were, there is a possibility that the judges could rule to go ahead with the case anyway, citing public interest. So they have then now put all of these cases together, and this is what the judges said, and this is why we say that it is not a walk in the park just yet, and the IEBC cannot do anything, because in the interim, this is what the 5 judges said. They restrained IEBC from facilitating and subjecting that referendum bill, that amendment bill, to a referendum, or taking any further action to advance the bill pending the hearing and determination of the consolidated petitions. And that hearing will be taking place March 17th through to the 19th. Each petitioner will be given 30 minutes, and due to the COVID-19 restrictions that we have in the country, those cases will be heard via video conferencing. It's important to note these are not the only cases. There's in fact another one that just came in yesterday. A lawyer based in Nairobi, Charles Kanjama, has also gone to court asking whether the IEBC proved and ascertained the 1.14 million signatures that accompanied the bill. Do they have a database for that? And the validity of that whole process. And remember, there's also the 2 cases that are at the Supreme Court. One was filed by Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who's the governor for Makueni County, and another by the Nandi and Kericho counties, talking about whether the county assemblies could alter that. So what all of this means is that the IEBC can at this point not do anything, and even though people are saying it's all systems go, we are hearing from MPs that they will be asking the IEBC to produce their budgets. Well, the next step in the process of the referendum is actually the hearing and determination of these cases, which happens middle of next month. So that is what the next process is here in the country with respect to that referendum process. That's our explainer tonight. We want to take a break now.